EMMENSITY, The Complete Story. Written by Bryce Brown and Tyrell Smith. Read by Uriah Gillespie. Part 1. Creation. Before anything once existed, there was nothing. Only an empty void. Nothingness that seemed like a black box. Suddenly, a rift from an unknown place, another existence, an entity arrived, birthing the concept and the creation of time, an extension of the entity to allow things to move forward. The entity would become known as the End. The arrival of the End shook existence. This spawn point where the End arrived would be known as the dreaded Abyss. Deepest parts of existence filled with chaos energy and other mysterious energies that destroy everything it touches, corrupts it. The home and location of the End goes to once he is fully formed. Deep into the chaotic abyss that looks like the circles of hell, there is a large temple and shrine, one that contains a rift that may connect to who knows what, possibly another existence beyond comprehension. This is what the End lives for and tries to protect. A reality was created within that timeline by the End. It's unknown why it created a reality within the timeline only to want to destroy it later, possibly seeking what would happen if life was created in a different existence, a different place from where it once came from. Time then creates a string that ties existence, reality, dimensions, space, and itself all together, making it known as the realm beyond existence. It all began in one single universe, birthed into what would be known as reality, one created by a big bang of sorts due to unknown reasoning. That spark to create this universe created several sentient beings who would overlook this universe, and then later would patrol and control multiple realities from popping up, leaving this universe and reality to be the only one that existed to not bring harm to those who lived in this universe. This group would be known as the Celestial Legion of Order, with its leader being Asmodeus. With their protectors living high above the universe, they began operating from a separate space, in a pocket dimension of sorts, outside of the universe. Their existence to others quickly faded away, leaving them to nearly become a legend and a religion based on them, believing these were their creators and gods. The Celestial Legion of Order would then learn of the existence of the End and attempt to kill it, after finding various ways to destroy it. When new realities were created, the End would be reborn inside, corrupting it from the inside out. The only way to keep the End at bay and keep it from wiping out everything else is to keep eliminating realities that it would spawn in. A universe of peace among species full of intelligent life. One of these species was known as humans, the most intelligent out of them all. They had technology and power beyond anyone else. These humans explored the entire universe. They nearly mastered and learned all the concepts of existence and science that can be learned. There was nothing they could overcome except one thing: death. Everything had an expiration date. These scientists began working together to develop a way to find immortality. After a long time, the idea began to fade, and scientists began to give up. However, one day, a scientist did learn a way to achieve a longer-lasting life. A fusion between energy and souls, if one continues to consume one's life force and add their soul and energy into their body. It slows the decay of their body dramatically. One of the scientists experimented on himself. Doing this process, he began losing his mind. The result was a success, making him more powerful than every other human out there. He wanted more, and began using his power to devour people, People were dying left and right, and resources began to drain. The human race tried their best to fight off this new threat that they gave the name the Devourer of Gods. Soon the human race was battling each other over food and shelter as the Devourer of Gods destroyed everything around it, tearing the universe apart effortlessly. Soon the war would come to a close, and the human race's number dwindled to nearly nothing. A few of the remaining scientists still alive needed to escape. Using all the remaining technology they had, they were able to create a small space, a pocket dimension that branched outside of that universe and simultaneously created a wall, creating that of a new reality, a space and a wall that the Devourer of Gods could no longer reach. The scientists were now alone, leaving all of their kind and the rest of that universe to die out. The remaining scientists had created a large escape pod and base of operations using material from their own world, and used forms of energy from that universe. Their base of operations was then known as the Egg of Creation. It was a large round purplish blue object that sat floating in the space. The scientists had nothing to do. They couldn't live like this much longer. They needed to bring back their species. However, they couldn't afford to make the same mistake again. They needed a new way for all life to survive and thrive, as a test to see if they can. In their old reality, they all lived together as one. So they decided to test if they all can live separately. They used their Egg of Creation to then spread out and create more universes, similar to the original one they had. One of the scientists willingly gave their life to fuse with the egg, giving it a form of sentience. This would become known as the Will of Creation. However, part of it knew that had the egg gone out of control, there should be a counter to it. So another half of the egg was programmed with the Will of Destruction to destroy all failed universes. Part of the Will of Destruction manifested a being known as the Dimension Eater, to act as its eyes and ears to roam free within the multiverse. The egg would pump energy into these spaces, creating stars, planets, and more, and especially created a new form of life forms based on themselves, and based on the species from the first reality. Soon, a multiverse would be created, separate individual spaces next to each other, with invisible barriers protecting each one from one another, but all connected by the tubes that lead back to the center of it all, the Egg of Creation. These humans, nicknamed the Originals, would then call themselves the Anti-Human Primes, as they were no longer like the rest of their species back at home. They created a new space just for them and had a way to watch over all the universes and watch their simulation closely. However, this left the egg alone. The Will of Creation, knowing that eventually new life in these universes would be born and could wander to the egg, it needed someone that could watch over and protect the egg until the end of the simulation. The egg used up a majority of extra energy to create a powerful being known as the One. The One watched over the egg and acted as its bodyguard. However, there was a problem. Due to the egg being created last second, it required a lot of power to function, which required them to have to use all the energy they had. What they didn't know is that some of the chaotic and destructive energy emitted from the Devourer of Gods ended up going into the egg as well. During the process of fusing life energy and the chaos's energy, it created another being named Mantis, a near twin of the One. The two watched over the egg together. However, due to the corruption of the chaos energy, it drove Mantis to become angry and believed he was better than his older brother, the One. Mantis challenged the One to a battle, and whoever would win and was stronger would watch the egg and show off to the anti-human primes. The egg would be damaged and couldn't risk being destroyed by the two. The Will of Creation would then form a new being using all the energy it had left to create universes, creating a new neutral being known as Pandora. Pandora would defeat the two and stop the two from fighting. Mantis chose to leave and go to sleep while the other two watched the egg. Pandora and the One would work together and create certain plans in case the simulation would fail. They created 2 boxes, one filled with life to create new life had all life got destroyed, and another filled with the chaos energy that was left over in the egg to destroy all life had they lost control. Pandora gave both boxes to the One to keep safe. Pandora left to begin exploring the new, fresh multiverse. Part 2. The First War. The first life created by the egg was made of raw, pure, good energy, and would soon come to be named the Light Lord. Smaller life formed around the Light Lord and began following in his footsteps. This would come to be known as the Light Dimension. In another universe near it, a being made of darker energy was created, tainted by the potent chaos energy that emitted from the second Pandora's box. This being would be known as the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord and his allies that followed underneath him learned through science and one of the anti-human primes of all that had happened and the ways of the multiverse. The Dark Lord, however, wanted more. He wanted to get stronger and work with the anti-human primes to defeat the Devourer of Gods. In order to become stronger, he needed the space and power of the Light Lord. The Dark Lord would then learn how to breach into other universes. The Light Lord learned of the same science, and the two soon went to war. The Light Lord then created a warrior strong enough to handle the Dark Lord had they crossed paths during the war. The warrior's name was Levelant. During this war, an ally of the Light Lord named Delga Gravriel raised to the ranks of second in command. The war led on for thousands of years, and the Light was losing. Over many failures and bad commands of the Light Lord, Delga had soon had enough. Delga began resisting the Light Lord. He was an archangel and the second being to ever be created in the Light Dimension. The angels banded together to stop Delga. However, he was too strong. Due to the lost war, the Light Lord and his angels sealed Delga away after Delga's attempt on their lives. A young angel named Michael Kemuel, who served in the main army, was promoted to Archangel in Delga's place. The Light Lord gifted a chunk of his power to Michael. However, Michael was defeated in battle during the last battle of the war, causing the Light to lose completely. Michael went into a coma and was lost. The Light Lord and the other angels were forced to retreat. The Light Lord had to create a much smaller universe and disappeared along with his angels, using Delga's seal as a source of power for the dimension. The Dark Lord took all the energy and resources from the old Light Dimension, leaving nothing but a wasteland. This dimension became known as the Blight Dimension. The Dark Lord returned to the Dark Dimension. However, he still needed to get stronger and defeat the Light once and for all, and prepared for another war, trying desperately to find the Light and their new universe. Meanwhile, Michael woke up still in the Blight Dimension and had no way to leave. About this same time, Mantis awakened. During his hibernation, he had been absorbing all of the chaos energy from the violence and war across the multiverse, which was making him exponentially stronger. Mantis began to explore the multiverse and eventually found his way to the secret space, the secret universe that the originals, the anti-human primes, resided in and watched over the multiverse. Mantis spoke to them and learned the truth. They then took Mantis to their previous reality to show them why they had done what they had. Mantis returned to the second reality, his home multiverse. He now had a new goal in mind and a new plan to set in motion. However, he needed more power if he was going to take down the Devourer of Gods, as it had been predicted that once nothing was left in that previous reality, he would make his way into the new one and continue devouring everything. The Light Lord needed a new army to replenish what he had lost during the war. He needed something new. He began taking his angels that were already based on the originals and needed to expand on them. Using various empty universes and various creatures, he populated the cosmos and watched them evolve. However, they failed to listen and do what was needed and were ultimately abandoned. Another universe he created in experimentation was Eldarine. However, they failed due to the species being unable to gain more energy naturally. Another universe called Universe 2 was created, but they too refused to listen and eventually ended up killing each other. Part 3, Planet Earth. The Light Lord then created and designed a new version of humans. The first of his official successful creations was Adam and Eve. He placed them in a new universe along with whatever other experiments he had at the time. This universe would be known as Universe 1 Prime. These humans were a clean slate with the design and bodily functions of justifiables, a weaker version of angels. These humans could evolve over time and absorb energy and even manipulate energy with enough training. They could fight and listen properly. The Light Lord created a planet known as Earth for them to settle on, and when the species would develop enough, they could rejoin the Light Lord and his army. Although the Dark Lord didn't have a way to reach the light, he did know how to breach into other universes. The Dark Lord eventually found Earth and the truth of this new world. The Light Lord placed a chunk of the land from the light dimension onto Earth, known as the Light Sanctuary, but it was given a new name called the Garden of Eden, a home base for the light and for Adam and Eve to contact the Light Lord and give updates. A special fruit was created filled with light energy that was not to be touched unless needed, as in an emergency, it would bestow the power of an angel to whoever ate of it. However, a servant of the Dark Lord snuck onto Earth and into the Garden of Eden and infected a piece of the fruit. Eve, who was out exploring, was attacked by a wild animal. The servant saved her and in order to help her, fed her the corrupted fruit. But with one bite from the fruit, he made her the first person to wield dark energy. Though she still had light in her, it was tainted by the darkness, infecting her mind, and she would pass down small amounts of dark energy to all future generations. A chunk of the egg of creation fell off. A massive shockwave from the Light and Dark Lord's battle echoed through the tubes and affected the egg and cracked it. The piece of the eggshell fell into one of the tubes and landed on Earth. Adam and Eve had several kids who then had kids with each other and eventually would create a young child known as Xavion. After years of growing, Xavion was around the age of 7. He was punished by not being good enough to help the others with survival. He wandered around until he found a cave. Inside, he found the piece of the eggshell and touched it, absorbing its power and affecting his body, turning his brown eyes yellow and putting him into a deep slumber that lasted for years. Xavion went missing for all this time, and Adam and the rest of the villagers and people grew up without him. During this time, aliens, who were old experiments of the Light Lord, evolved on their own, gained their own advanced technology, found Earth, and tried taking over. Adam and the others took energy from the fruit and began fighting back against these aliens. The war between the humans and the aliens lasted around 30 years. Some of the remaining aliens settled in Egypt and built pyramids as their base. The aliens started dying off as they couldn't adapt to the planet in time. One of the anti-human primes who made it to Universe 1 Prime fought his way through the hierarchy of sentient life in the universe, and then became its ruler, known as the Cosmic King. Xavion awoke and returned to the much older village, and in hatred for the treatment he'd received, he killed his father and grandmother, Adam and Eve, and the higher-ups, and became leader of the village. Adam and Eve were saved by a servant of the Light Lord who had been watching and brought the two back to the light. Adam and Eve started leading the new light army. Xavion began expanding the villages, and humans began moving on their own over the course of hundreds and thousands of years. Humanity spread all over the globe, and the population was rising more and more. Xavion was taking leadership in many kingdoms and villages. One time, one of the villages in Europe, Greece, rejected Xavion and his immense power. In a great fit of rage, he unleashed total destruction and ended up unintentionally killing all life on the entire continent of Europe. Over time, Xavion's personality drastically changed, and he began to refer to himself as Wrath. During this time, a young child named Elisa, who was the daughter of Pandora, found herself randomly glitching out of the universe. Discovering a rift between Universe 1 Prime and the Egg of Creation, she then entered the rift and found a mysterious being known as Time. She was then hit by its powers, which allowed her to see the past, present, and future, along with several alternate possibilities that the future could hold. Elisa suddenly had a new goal: to watch over this reality and make sure it would lead down the right path to a certain future. By this time, Wrath had been taking over kingdoms across the planet for thousands of years, when he finally decided that he needed a break. He settled down in a small village where he met a young child named Liam Sneed, child of one of the kings that had often been bullied. He soon became friends with yet another child who was very smart. His name was Adam Weasel. The next to join the small group was another child named Arime, whom Wrath had battled against prior and who already possessed quite a special set of abilities. Wrath, Liam, Arime, and Adam Weasel would create a small group known as the Black Table. They wanted to expand their knowledge, and with Wrath's thousands of years of experience and intellect, they were able to do so beyond the capabilities of absolutely anyone else at the time. They began doing experiments and learning to master energy and study the universe. More kids began to join in, expanding the Black Table. A rift opened up on Earth from the Dark Dimension, allowing a young vampire named Victor through, who also joined. One day, Adam Weasel came across a nearly dead alien body who injected Adam with its consciousness and began living in Adam's mind and body. This expanded Adam's mind and allowed the Black Table to grow further and develop even more technology. Due to the alien's knowledge and memories, Adam was able to get the Black Table to locate some leftover technology from the prior war at the dawn of humanity in Egypt. With some reverse engineering, they were able to use this alien tech to create machines that could produce near immortality, along with developing a form of interdimensional travel. Adam, who was slowly going mad, paved the way to the Eldarine dimension, creating a Stargate portal powered by Wrath's insane levels of energy. On the other side, in Eldarine, a mysterious monster known as the Dimension Eater appeared and began threatening life on that world. An angel who had the powers of light and dark, Persephone, was attempting to open a portal to Universe 1 Prime in order to allow her people to escape the threat unharmed. The two portals opening at the same time overloaded the machine and created an explosion known as Hell's Ragnarok that killed Adam and broke the interdimensional tube between Earth and Eldarine, filling both universes with an excess amount of energy, allowing beings from both universes to absorb it, radically altering their biology forever. The name given to those who could wield and master this energy was Externals. The Hell's Ragnarok event shook the entire planet, breaking off a small piece of land where Wrath once touched the shell of the Egg of Creation. This small piece of land would become its own island known as Air Peaks. Civilization found the island as it became isolated, leaving them to be stuck there during medieval times and never growing from it. During this time, Wrath and the Black Table began ruling the world from the shadows, meeting with kings and queens and whoever was in charge, giving orders and threatening them with the powers of science they had developed from their new experiments. The Black Table would expand, and a cult devoted to them slowly formed, working to spread their influence across the world. This cult became known as the Illuminati. After not much time, life continued forward, as it does. The Black Table became less and less known of, until they were nearly hidden from the world, besides only a few select higher-ups like kings and such knew of their existence and their control over the world in the background. Humans began developing superpowers across the planet. However, the Black Table were mostly able to track them down and kill them. Those who were externals were killed by the churches created by the Black Table, who deemed them as witches using black magic. Sometime between the 17 and 1800s, with the help of Adam Weasel's son, Alex Weasel, they were fully able to achieve interdimensional travel, upon which they would go to the Dark Dimension. They would meet the Dark Lord and propose a deal in which they would help aid the Dark Lord's battle against the Light, in return for the Dark Lord giving them technology, soldiers, and even more power. Part 4. Mastermind in the Shadows. Wrath started having his own goals in taking over the entire world, and began putting his own plans into motion, continuing from where he was before he helped create the Black Table. He would create a perfect society in his image. Wrath began starting multiple wars to test several things. He started World War I to test the public's weapons and develop them further in case they would rebel against him. Wrath then gave a man named Adolf Hitler political power and began committing war crimes. He wanted to test if people would follow a ruler capable of committing heinous atrocities. He started the Vietnam War to study the tactics of soldiers in tight spaces. Then the Cold War to see how leaders would handle tense situations. In this time, Wrath began the process of creating the ultimate warrior, who would serve him and aid him in his goals by experimenting on people with mind control, and then moving on to creating beings from scratch. During this time, Wrath took a young kid named Aku and began training him. He also created a new group who would serve him, named the Apollo Sins. They would be trained to act as his messengers and assassins. A new light sanctuary was constructed on Earth for justifiables, and those of the light to enjoy Earth with a protective barrier around their small island to leave them unnoticed to the world. 2 justifiables brought their daughter named Spira to the light sanctuary. There she would train and get stronger. She was naturally strong in the light. After a tournament was held, due to losing, Spira became frustrated and accidentally destroyed the barrier, allowing the Black Table to know of their location and immediately exterminate the entire island. Spira was the only one to escape. She then started to train, becoming stronger, mastering every martial art known to man. During this time, many humans in the world began developing powers. Externals were becoming the majority, to the point where it was hard for the Illuminati to hide their actions and their existence at all. Raijin Kiji and the grandson of Alex Weasel were born. Alex Weasel defected from the Black Table and lived a new life alone with his daughter Alexa Weasel. Victor then invaded his home and kidnapped Alexa's 2 sons, 2 twins, and turned them into vampires, before subsequently being killed by his own son, Vaxis. Alex Weasel would then raise Jack Weasel, who during this time had developed the ability of light. The father of Raijin Kiji, Daeon Kiji, got the attention of the Black Table and was recruited by Wrath, leaving the Kiji family altogether. Part 5. Abyss of Sin. Several years later, Raijin left for Waterbridge Core, a business building with a secret lab underneath where Dion continued to master interdimensional travel. Liam Sneed killed Alex Weasel for his betrayal of the Black Table. Jack was then taken in to join the Illuminati and trained. Upon discovering that he was trapped in the lab, Raijin was forced to eat the meat from dead animals that had been brought back to Earth from the Dark Dimension. Raijin was able to locate his father, but just as the two were reunited, the portal between Earth and the Dark Dimension suffered a catastrophic overload and exploded. Raijin absorbed the explosion, the resulting energies allowing him to tap into the multiverse itself. Elsewhere, Michael Kemuel, the old Archangel, awoke from his coma and found himself in the Blight Dimension. Managing to escape, he came to Earth intending to live as a normal human. About this time, a tournament for martial arts with a $100 billion reward was being held on July 25th. Raijin, who had escaped from the Illuminati, fled to the Dark Dimension to train his new body and then returned to Earth for the tournament. The Black Table, who had recently recruited Jack, began heading towards Tournament Island. Wrath placed a machine beneath the ring to gather the DNA and energy of all of its fighters. Aaron Merger, a young boy, gained the power of light and rose to become a new guardian, along with joining the hierarchy of the Light Dimension, becoming one of its knights. Many externals went to the tournament and finally revealed to the entire world that people with superpowers do exist. Politicians began using this to try to sway the people to their sides, including a man named Douglas McCain, an external himself, but notorious for making externals look bad. This included using gang members who were externals to attack the public and become active terrorists. The government would then pit these externals against each other in a civil war after the tournament was finished. Douglas McCain slowly began rising in power as many of the non-external public joined his side. At the same time, the Black Table, specifically Wrath, found out about the existence of Air Peak, the island where he originated from, and also the civilization who formed their own externals tribe and were hiding resources and a power source of extreme energy. Wrath rallied his forces and began invading, starting a war against the island to gather its resources. From the energy and DNA from those who fought in the martial arts tournament, a new being was created. A nightmare born from an experiment gone completely off the rails, known simply as Negative. He would come to Earth and begin a calamity under Wrath's orders. This calamity terrified the public and completely decimated parts of the world in an eventual effort to get them to listen and obey Wrath. This subjugation was taken too far, and the damage to the planet became too great. In total, 4 billion lives were lost. Negative broke out of Wrath's control, desiring power and dominion for himself. After creating a portal from the atmosphere to the Earth's core, Negative absorbed the Earth's core energy to rapidly grow in power. Negative would destroy 2 continents and wipe them from the face of the Earth completely. Australia and South America were replaced with a new dark red continent in the center of the planet to build his new kingdom. A band of externals, along with Raijin as its leader, battled against Negative for the fate of the Earth, nearly defeating him. In a fit of rage and loss, Negative began ripping the Earth's core out of the planet. Raijin then attempted to sacrifice his life to restore it, but was stopped by Wrath, who murdered him and absorbed the core into himself, making him exponentially stronger. The Earth, unable to retain stability, exploded. There was just enough time for Aaron Merger and Wrath to escape, separating to the light and dark dimensions respectively. The Earth was no more. Wrath became a new dark warlord and king of the underworld as Aaron, vowing to get revenge, would train in the light dimension for several months. Wrath began taking over several planets with his godlike powers. With an army of demons, soldiers, and warriors from the Dark Dimension at his beck and call, he and his army began to head to Gaiathea, a hub world that controlled the universe led by the Cosmic King. During this time, Aaron Merger trained his body and his mind to its highest potential, and even delved deep into Delga's seal. Delga trained Aaron before Eren would confront Wrath after he had successfully taken over Gaiathea. Wrath stood over the defeated Cosmic King, mocking him when Eren arrived, and they began an epic battle to the death. Wrath emerged victorious and gained a reward from the Witch of Sin to restore Earth. Earth sprang back into existence a few minutes after Negative's defeat, allowing the Externals to battle the badly damaged Wrath. The Externals won through sheer hard work and willpower, successfully saving the planet. For now. Part 6. New Order. Most of the Black Table and government had retreated to the Dark Dimension for some time to figure out what to do. In the process of using air peak resources to help rebuild Earth with nanotechnology and energy resources, Earth was mostly restored to how it was. Society was now battling racism and segregation between humans and Externals. Douglas McCann returned as President of the United States, leader of the United Nations, and really pretty much the entire world, with humans on his side and Arime backing him up. With Wrath gone, Arime had stepped up to become the new leader of the Emperors of the Black Table. Around this time, Artie Vaniel, a young External who had survived the negative calamity, began a rebellion with the help of Genocide Eden, the son of Wrath Eden. Leveland, who planned to control both the light and dark side, started putting his plans into motion. Vincent, the son of Victor, who had died to Vaxis and revived alongside Liam Sneed, worked with the Dark Lord, who had raised his army to incredible heights and begun to invade the light dimension for the new Light versus Dark War. Arime and Douglas McCann used the world's united military to begin exterminating all Externals, ushering in a new External versus government war. Elisa finished her manipulation in the shadows and used the remaining time to help the rebellion fight against the war. Eren traveled to the underworld to revive Wrath to help him battle against Leveland, who was given a new life and a new body. The Light versus Dark War proceeded, with the Light unfortunately losing. The Light and Dark Lords' clash tore reality asunder and set in motion a complete and total collapse for existence. Eldarine exploded, which gave birth to a new dimension in a new reality. Pandora awakened. Using her box, she attempted to create new life and pour more sentient energy into the new reality, but Mantis returned and murdered his sister, taking the second box and using its energy to condense the collapsing reality into a spear, a weapon made to defeat the Devourer of Gods. At the last possible moment, the One reawakened. Reality collapsed. Worlds beyond number were destroyed. Time itself took damage and had to absorb sentient energy from the universe just to hold itself together. Seeing no other choice, time trapped reality in frozen animation to continue to absorb their energy to heal. All of Reality 2 was gone, leaving Reality 3 to form a new Earth, using the debris from Eldarine, creating a new flat planet named Elder Earth. Part 7. Imperfect Reality. The clash of two godly deities ruptured the previous reality that once existed. Reality shattered. Time and space caved in and warped into nothingness. In the last second, a special energy was released in an explosion in the blank empty space, recreating a new universe, a new singular dimension. Within the space, the planet Earth, the most special place in the original universe, was recreated and expanded into its own dimension. The dimension was a land that stretched for 10,000 miles. It was made of dirt, water, and grasses. The planet looked like the Earth's crust from the previous universe. The ground went deep and seemed to never end. The sky was blue and filled with clouds and oxygen. Unlike the universe before, you could see space, but now it was only an infinite atmosphere that led to nothing. The planet was flat, with only land and oceans that broke up pieces here and there. Rivers and oceans that were all connected through the land. It was as if the entire world was just one flat continent made up of different biomes, as if someone had cut out a continent from Earth and flung it far into space. Hot gases that settled far into the void of the dimension created a sun that would emit light down to the entire dimension. The sun was massive, extremely hot, and incredibly bright. Clouds and other gases would cover the sun, creating a night and day cycle around the planet-sized dimension. Smaller hot gas balls acted as small stars that hovered in the void that surrounded the land. The leftover energy from the previous universe and this new universe's creation began slowly forming conscious beings. For 13 billion years, as the new Earth and dimension took shape, the lands of the Earth were moving and reshaping and adjusting to the new time-space. Energy began to gain consciousness, developing individuality and agency. After gaining sentience and familiarizing themselves with their surroundings, the energy began to weave together physical bodies to interact with the world. At the heart of it all, the egg of creation, the object that had given birth to the previous multiverse, cracked open. A mysterious being simply known as the One had broken free from its shell. It shielded itself as the previous multiverse crumbled. The One found itself in the new dimension. It then guided the conscious energies into creating new bodies that resembled humans. The three original conscious energies and the One became known as the Great Four God Kings: the Ether God King, the Dragon God King, and then the Primal God King. The One took the form of that of a human, the most perfect human shape. The One renamed himself the Grand Master of Grand Masters. Out of the four of them, the Grand Master of Grand Masters was the strongest being. The three God Kings listened and obeyed the Grand Master of Grand Masters. The Grand Master of Grand Masters, who had witnessed all the events of the previous reality, began teaching the four God Kings about the old history, taught them how to live, fight, survive, and harness their immense powers. The Ether God King was inspired by humans and took on human shape and their ideology. The Primal God King was inspired by dinosaurs and early cavemen and took the form of a caveman. The Dragon God King was inspired by the old Dark Lord and Light Lord of the old dimensions. He took the form of a humanoid that looked like a dark knight made of armor and lava to match the earthly volcanic landscape. The Grand Master of Grand Masters took the shape of a human with black and white clothing. He had long white hair and a beard that looked like that of a modern-day human, with a black and white suit that resembled that of the light dimension and dark dimension, to give him a godly yet royal appearance. A combination of all of them. Years flew by, and more of the fresh energy of the new dimension developed consciousness and had bodies created for them. This new society of beings began to overwhelm the Grand Master of Grand Masters in one village in particular. The Grand Master of Grand Masters ordered the three God Kings to take over new land and create new kingdoms for their people. The people followed as each kingdom expanded across the new Earth dimension. Soon, everyone was happy. 65 million years passed as evolution began once again. This age was known as the Golden Age. These new beings became more human-like, along with other beings being nearly mindless, like the original animals of the previous Earth. Some beings took forms of monsters. Some took the form of humanoids or a collection of abstract objects put together. Some looked like humans and or the primitive caveman shape. These beings learned to have long lives, learned to adapt to new environments by forcibly evolving their bodies and genetics. They learned to reproduce on their own. After the new universe had finally settled, there were no longer random energies and elements and materials floating around everywhere. These materials combined into each other to create elements for the new dimension. Everything now had a reason. The energy of the new universe no longer gained consciousness on their own. With this, the population was stunted for quite some time as new beings stopped appearing from seemingly thin air. These beings learned and used their own energies from their bodies to combine into each other to create conscious life. This led to the new world to start sexually and or asexually reproducing to create new life, much like the old reality. Millions of years passed until these kingdoms were full of people that could no longer be contained. The great god kings looked for ways to expand their territories, and they did. This went on until the territories began to touch each other. With the new territories touching each other, tension grew between the nations, and conflicts erupted as each wanted more land to expand their kingdoms. After 100,000 years, the first Great Territory War began. This was known as the Great God War. A merciless battle amongst the nations grew to a fever pitch. People began developing new powers and technologies designed to overcome the Great War. After enough deaths and territory expansion, the new dimension began to crack apart. The Grandmaster of Grandmasters, who had been resting and waiting for the God Kings to stop their wars, had awoken. He stopped the war with the threat of killing everyone and starting anew. He also explained how this war was similar to what had happened in the previous universe, and was exactly the reason the old reality had been destroyed. Part 8. New Golden Age. With the idea of history repeating, people got interested in the old history of the previous universe. This knowledge of the old universe became very valuable, as people believed that if history was repeating, the more they knew of the old universe, the more they could use that knowledge and tactics to have an advantage should a war happen yet again. Armies expanded. New weapons using science and biology were created. A new method of fighting was used. The civilizations of this new reality learned that they could manipulate the very fabric of space they lived in. They learned to control energy and master it. They learned how to open small rifts that humans used to call realms, or pocket dimensions to store weapons and powers for later uses. They created a new age. The new age of the exploration and discovery of history, especially as more people discovered artifacts and such that had managed to survive the collapse of the previous reality. As the times were changing so quickly, people began to refer to the previous age as the BGW, or Before the Great God War. And the years after the final battle people referred to as the New Age, and years beyond it would be referred to as the AGW, or After the Great God War, similar to the dates such as BC and AD of the old reality on that Earth. The Age of Exploration lasted from 100 AGW to 1400 AGW. People began creating libraries and temples all over the land that held knowledge of the previous history. Within these temples were cave carvings and papers that detailed the Light Lord and the Dark Lord's epic battle. The great history of the Light and Dark Dimension, its wars, and the creation of the Blight Dimension also was kept there, along with the history of the humans, from the cavemen that evolved all the way to humans that fought in wars and progressed in technology. Not long after, only 100 years or so, people began fighting over that knowledge, sparking a second Great War that started in the year 1500 AGW. This war was also known as the Cognizance War. This lasted from 1500 AGW to 1650 AGW. This led to many of the artifacts and libraries being destroyed in the process due to greed. At this time, another being, old as the Grand Master of Grandmasters himself, arose his brother, Mantus. He had survived the Great Collapse. He had remained there in the darkness, waiting for his time to come. As soon as people realized this man had come from the old dimension, they battled over him and battled against him for his knowledge of the old reality. Mantus was so powerful that he defeated everyone in the entire dimension all at once. Over the course of the month of March, he continued his subjugation of Elder Earth. On March 27, 1700 AGW, he single-handedly crushed the three God Kings. From this day forth, he would be known as the Demon God King, and the true ruler of Elder Earth. Soon he stood face to face with and challenged the Grand Master of Grandmasters, defeating him in unarmed combat. On April 20th, 1700 AGW, the One, the three God Kings, and all of Elder Earth bowed before the great might of Mantus. For his first act, he brought all the four God Kings into unison. Under his reign, he forced the nations to come to peace with each other and stop the ridiculous quest for knowledge. In order to stop the wars and ever-expansion of territories, Mantus created a special barrier around the territories. He created a great kingdom for himself with the Grand Master of Grandmasters as his assistant. Having been thoroughly defeated, the Grand Master lost his illustrious status as one of the God Kings. The three God Kings were no longer allowed to interact outside of their territories unless for trading purposes or sharing of knowledge that the Demon God King would monitor. The three God Kings became friends again and were happy with the new world. For another 300 years, the dimension that these beings would call home would find itself in an era of peace, working to rebuild the artifacts and temples that had been destroyed. A few groups from each territory were allowed to leave and navigate the land to map things out. They were allowed to navigate the dimension as much as they wanted for science and report back to see just how large their new world was. Until they reached a spot where there was no longer land, but just an empty void of nothingness. They had reached the end of their universe. The Demon God King began using his knowledge of both universes to start his own experiments. No one knew his goals. Some believed that at the rate that new beings were being born, they would eventually run out of space on their small planet. Some believed that the Demon God King was trying to resurrect the old reality. The year was now 2021 AWG. Society was advanced. Each God King ran their territories differently. The God King of Ether ran his territory as cities where the Ether God King was their god. Religion ran rampant in their territory and believed he was the best God King and believed him a prime candidate to run the throne. Their society developed cities with their own diplomatic systems with mayors and presidents. These cities resembled the cities of 2021 AD of the previous reality. Their system of government resembled that of the United States government. Due to people believing humanity was the best route to go, the Ether God King took the form of a normal human. They believed humans were the best race to be and the only race their God King should have contact with. The other humanoid and non-humanoid creatures took offense to this and believed that everyone was equal and that they should matter to him as well. This created a civil war within the territories of the different species. This civil war took place in 1861 AGW and ended in 1865 AGW. A second war took place when a small human cult began killing other humanoid species to get rid of them to only leave humans left. This created a second civil war among the territory known as Civil War II. This second civil war took place in 1947 AGW until 1989 AGW. In the Second Civil War, the Ether God King got involved and wiped out the remaining non-human civilizations that lived in his territory. The survivors from that civil war, who were not human, were sent to the Primal God King's territory to live. The Dragon God King kept his territory open. Everyone was equal and had to find their own ways to survive. They lived in an extremely harsh volcanic and mountainous terrain. People were free to do as they wanted. They had no leaders and lived in villages and small societies within the mountains. These people were not directed by the God King and made up their own rules and regulations. These people had to find food and shelter on their own to survive. The Dragon God King never interfered with the people unless they went to him, or punished the people who did wrong with death. The Primal God King had a territory of land filled with mountains, hills, forests, and swamps. The beasts and savages lived there by cannibalizing or fighting each other constantly. This was the most poor and underdeveloped society. They hunted and killed each other to stay alive, and used the underground caves, trees, mountains, and small villages to keep sheltered. Most people stuck to themselves and hunted and ate the wildlife. Some societies stuck together to hunt other societies for their supplies or for their lives. The Demon God King's territory was the largest place. Filled with harsh mountains and a combination of different biomes, some were filled with smaller kingdoms, some were advanced cities with huge technology, some were like medieval times, others resembled Viking times. No matter the biome, though, people constantly slaved and worked under the iron fist of the Demon God King. Outside of the territories, there was mostly empty land filled with beasts and monsters, or a group of people who were designed by the Grandmaster of Grandmasters and the Demon God King to patrol the outer world and protect each nation from one another, while also keeping the inhabitants from leaving their territories without notifying the Demon God King or their leaders. It kept all the people corralled and pacified. Any stragglers who left knowingly or unknowingly were executed on the spot. The Demon God King for a long time had been mostly unseen outside of the higher-ups. He created a council known as the Council of Tribunals, 4 beings from a race of mysterious beings made of dark and light energies who worked together to monitor all of the territories, God Kings, and the lands outside of the territories. They worked as the central government and posed as the authority in service of the Demon God King in his absence. No one was allowed to enter the Demon King's palace unless they were a God King or a member of the Tribunals Council. The 4 members took turns and had different jobs that helped out and regulated the knowledge and trading of items between the 4 territories starting in 1900 AWG. Suddenly, a few people who once lived in the previous reality began showing up to the new dimension. Children who were just being born, babies who were being created that ended up being mixed in with the various energies that clashed with each other during the reality's collapse, found themselves no longer frozen in time. They found themselves in the new reality and had to learn to adapt to the new Earth. This possibly was a result of whatever experiment that the Demon God King was doing in the background. Peace in this dimension was about to change. The Demon God King ordered a new tournament for the world's strongest fighters to gather their strength for his ultimate secret weapon. Part 9, Judgment. A tournament for the best fighters from each territory was held in a style similar to the old world's martial arts tournament, the grand prize being a section of new land that the Demon God King no longer wanted or needed. The territories were able to peacefully fight for new land to expand their territories equally. This tournament was to take place on July 25th, 2023 AGW. The Demon God King then planted a machine under the tournament to take energy to power the spear. The first to enter the tournament was a very strange person, someone who was lost in reality 2 after they were a scientist on Earth who was accidentally teleported to another dimension filled with monsters, forcing them to survive and devour all the monsters of that dimension until nothing was left. This person was known as the Anomaly, as somehow they were untouched by the Reality 2 collapse. The Anomaly had come to the tournament to eat more people and grow stronger, but was swiftly dispatched by Michael Kemuel, who was released from stasis early along with many other residents of Reality 3. The tournament was a bloodbath. So much so that after its final round, it made the God Kings look bad for not intervening in the situation. During this time, Delga awoke and was now active, planning to warp Reality 3 into a new light dimension as he hated this new world. He then planted a new tree and slowly converted it into a new light dimension and became its ruler. However, due to his inner darkness, the light became corrupted and destroyed most of the world. The residents of Elder Earth worked together to defeat Delga, along with the being known as Time, who stopped and reversed time to give the residents an advantage to fight back. Delga had been killed, but the residents of Elder Earth were not happy with the God Kings, as they had done nothing and could have lost the planet. They began fighting back and destroying the Council of Tribunals and Order of Spectres, and then killing off each God King one at a time, until they reached the Grandmaster of Grandmasters and the Demon God King. During the final great battle, the Demon God King's spear was shattered, bringing back a merged Reality 2 that had fused into one universe and overlapped it onto Reality 3. Everyone worked together to defeat the Demon God King. Loki, a longtime servant of the Demon God King, betrayed him and took his soul and merged with Pandora's Box of Chaos and became the nearly unstoppable Chaos King. Humanity was united between Reality 2 and Reality 3, and the Chaos King was easily overthrown. Gale, the Aqua God King, became the new leader for Elder Earth. The residents of Elder Earth and Reality 2 separated as Michael Kemuel and Elisa took all the energy of the externals from Reality 2, making them normal humans again, and using that energy to create a new dimension to place Elder Earth in so the two could never interact again. The world of Elder Earth was rebuilt. Genocide then led humanity with his new organization, the Founding Fathers of the White Table, and would help fix everything that had happened. A book named EMMENSITY is created to help keep the history of everything from 2021 all the way up through the events of Reality 3 and the defeat of the Demon God King. Earth comes to peace and begins to repopulate and form one united government. The Founding Fathers of the White Table are created to help rebuild the planet and get everyone fixed up from the events of the external versus government war, and then, as generations and years pass, Earth is at peace for 120 years. A new government is made that now works with the extraterrestrials across the universe, and this government is known as the Supreme Unification of Planet Earth. The large world government is a positive government made by thousands of members to create and help people and protect the planet. Wars have fully stopped, and all crime in the world has been eliminated. Due to the resources found and used from the other dimensions before the collapse, with the help of alien technology before the multiverse's original destruction, world hunger was solved. All humans on Earth were given food and free housing and education. There is now only one currency in the world. With the resources, they began terraforming other planets very easily and used various drones and technology to terraform stars into Dyson spheres and more. Aliens from all other planets across the universe came to Earth. Earth became a central trading hub for every type of species across the universe. Humans and aliens became friends, traded materials and such, and for quite some time, peace reigned. Part 10. Last Hope. Earth enjoyed this peace for 6 long generations, until a dimensional invasion occurred, bringing a war to the universe. The arrival of the Devourer of Gods and the Celestial Legion of Order had arrived. They claimed Earth was too powerful and prosperous. Earth and the rest of the universe were plunged into a 20 years war. Acolytes and eldritch demonic creatures born from the Devourer of Gods began spreading across the globe. Life on Earth quickly began to die off. Cities and entire continents were lost. Most major military bases and research centers were completely converted into nests. Within the city named Waterbridge Ravenstein, an extremely large city was created that spanned for 1,500 miles and was broken up into 3 sections. District A, Atroth, where all the wealthy lived who had priority over everything else with the most security. Those who lived here had access to food, education, and the cleanest water supply. District B, named Riverbile, was where all the major companies and skyscrapers resided. They provided food, supplies, fair, average, well-built housing, and many jobs. Section C, named Lowtome, is where all the extra civilians and the poor resided. A large 400-meter wall was built around the city, as it was the last city on Earth. A majority of the entire human population came to this city. The city expanded, for corruption quickly spreads in a city where only the strong survive. Those who were the richest were corporations. Those who had money were able to stay safe. Men and women at the age of 13 were forced to join the military on the front lines. Those who were more wealthy were able to have their children join the military around the age of 17 and 18. Due to the lack of firepower with no externals, a new program was created to make even stronger humans so even civilians could help battle in the war. This program would fuse humans with various materials and machines to create cyborgs known as exolites. They were told that when the war was over, that all the machines and augments could be removed, making everyone human again. Sometime after the war began and the universe was already in shambles after the Celestial Legion took over, humanity managed to create a super weapon that would seal and launch the Devourer of Gods away from Earth, sending him across the universe with no way of knowing when he would return. Humanity would battle and attempt to regain the control of Earth from these acolytes, one step at a time. The reincarnation of Raijin Kiji and Jack Weasel became friends and discovered the old Immensity book. During this time, they went to school as their parents knew each other and were decently wealthy. They then met a young girl named Alaric Kassan, a child, a baby who turned out to be an external, the first external ever born in over 130 years. Alaric had some strange connection to the end, but was completely unsure about it. Unbeknownst to her, she was the vessel for the end. Meanwhile, outside of space and time and the realms beyond existence, a group known as the Council, created by a version of Raijin Kiji who had his soul split into two parts, formed a group to stop the Celestial Legion of Order using various realities to distract them and keep them from coming to Universe 1 Prime and planet Earth. When Michael Kemuel went into the realms beyond existence, time became supercharged and birthed an egg that would hatch, creating billions more timelines that could be filled with realities, to the point where the Celestial Legion would not possibly win the war. However, this would fail, and they would still arrive back on Earth after eliminating multiple other timelines. 2 years later, in the year 2185, Raijin and Jack become Exolites. They joined the military and began fighting missions to combat the Acolytes. First, by destroying nests and then reclaiming some old research centers. Raijin then found a member of the Celestial Legion and killed him, as they were already half dead for unknown reasons. Also learning they need to be tethered to this dimension, Raijin, Jack, and Alaric worked together to close several portals on planets and on Earth. This also destroyed the nests on the planet, making the Earth safe again. Jack began to lose his mind from all of the implants and PTSD from his past. Raijin, having no other choice, ended up mercy killing his friend. Afterwards, on a mission, the Devourer of Gods arrived. Raijin and Alaric ended up killing it after a hard-fought battle. Its death leaves a rift that leads outside of existence, where he then finds Raijin Prime, his other self, along with Elisa. The group is then confronted with the rest of the Celestial Legion of Order, only to defeat them. Raijin fuses with his original self and becomes complete. The four of them then go on to defeat the remaining Celestial Legion of Order as they arrive to confront them over the death of the Devourer of Gods. After they are defeated, they go off deeper into the forbidden, dreaded abyss and confront the core of the End. After a strenuous battle, the End becomes fused into Raijine's complete being. Using this new, immense power, he resets all of creation to zero, unwinding the entire timeline, using the crown to alter all the past events, to exclude the creation of the Celestial Legion of Order, the Egg of Creation, and more. The timeline plays out once again peacefully, with everyone living on Earth. Raijin then passes into the mysterious rift, closing it forever. Bravely venturing into another existence to fight off whatever is there, and to protect the current existence from the horrors of the void for all of eternity. Some say he still protects us to this very day.